There's a difference between a man who says he loves you and a man who remembers what you love. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The story I'm about to tell you happened to a woman named June. She had a good job, close friends, and a boyfriend who said all the right things. But she had one problem. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was invisible. And before you discover why, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on one thing you wish someone had remembered about you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The first disappearance. June loved fresh flowers. Not roses. Not the expensive kind that come in crystal vases with satin ribbons. Just simple grocery store bouquets. The ones with daisies and baby's breath that cost $7 at Trader Joe's and smell like spring. She mentioned this to her boyfriend one afternoon. They were walking past the floral section, and she said it casually, the way you mention anything you love when you're comfortable with someone. I love these. They just make everything feel lighter. He looked at them, nodded, said, "That's sweet," and kept walking. 3 months later, her birthday came. He got her a gift card to Sephora. Thoughtful in theory, generic in practice. 6 months later, Valentine's Day, he got her a Cartier bracelet. Beautiful, expensive. But there were no flowers, not even the $7 kind. A year into the relationship, June mentioned wanting to try pottery. She'd seen a class at a local studio and thought it looked fun. She said it once, maybe twice. He said, "Cool, you should do that." 6 months passed, then a year. The pottery class never came up again. It wasn't one big moment of rejection. It was erosion. A pattern of her words disappearing into silence. And somewhere along the way, June started to believe something about herself. I'm not memorable. I'm not the kind of person people pay attention to. I'm not special enough to stick in someone's mind. The pattern had started before him. Her dad never asked about her day. Her mom was so overwhelmed she didn't notice when June changed her major or stopped coming to family dinners. Her friends talked over her in group conversations, and she learned to laugh it off. And then she met him. At first, he seemed different. He asked questions. He seemed curious. But over time, the questions stopped. The curiosity faded. And June realized she was back in that familiar place. The place where she was seen but not known. Noticed but not remembered. She started making excuses. He's just not good with details. He's busy at work. Men aren't wired to remember stuff like that. Every excuse was a brick in the wall she was building around the truth. The truth that he wasn't paying attention. And if he wasn't paying attention, maybe she wasn't worth paying attention to. June stopped mentioning things she loved. She learned to keep her enthusiasm small and her dreams quiet. She told herself that being low maintenance meant not asking for too much. But that wasn't maturity. That was survival. Here's what most people don't understand about being forgotten. It's not about the flowers or the pottery class or the coffee order. It's about what forgetting does to your sense of worth. When someone repeatedly forgets what you've told them, your brain doesn't just register disappointment. It registers evidence. Evidence that you were right all along. That you're not worth the effort. Not worth the mental space. June was stuck in this pattern. But she didn't know there was another way. Not yet. Chapter 2. The Awakening. One Sunday, June's pastor preached on Psalm 139. "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord. June had heard this passage 100 times. But that morning, something shifted. She sat there thinking about the God who knows when she sits down. When she stands up, who perceives her thoughts before she's even finished thinking them? Who is familiar with all her ways? Not some of them. Not the ones she performs well or the ones that are easy to love. All of them. The God who knows the number of hairs on her head. Who sees the sparrow fall. Who calls the stars by name and doesn't forget a single one. And if God, in all his vastness and infinite responsibility for the universe, can know her this intimately, what did that say about the man who claimed to love her but couldn't remember that she mentioned wanting to try pottery a year ago? June sat in that church service and felt something crack open, not her heart. Her belief system, the belief that she was asking for too much. The belief that remembering what someone loves is some kind of superpower that only exists in movies. She realized something fundamental. Being known is not a luxury. It's not the cherry on top of an otherwise decent relationship. It's the whole point. Love, real love, the kind that reflects the love of Christ, is about seeing and being seen, knowing and being known. Not in some abstract, philosophical way, but in the small, specific, daily details of a life. When King Ahasuerus chose Esther, he didn't just notice that she was beautiful. He saw her. He honored her. He made space for her voice, her wisdom, her ridge. And when the time came, he listened. He remembered. He acted on what he knew about who she was. June walked out of that church service and started paying attention. Not to her boyfriend, to everyone else. Her best friend remembered that June had been stressed about a presentation at work and texted her the morning of to say she was praying. Her sister remembered that June hated being cold and brought an extra sweater when they went to the movies. These were small things. But they weren't small at all. Because June was starting to understand something. Remembering is love. And her boyfriend wasn't loving her. He was tolerating her. There's a difference between a man who says he loves you and a man who remembers what you love. And June was finally seeing it. Chapter 3. The Test. 3 weeks after that church service, June decided to test something. She mentioned the flowers again, casually. I've always loved those grocery store bouquets, the ones with daisies and baby's breath. He nodded, said, yeah, they're nice. 2 weeks passed. Her birthday came. He got her a designer handbag, Chanel, the one she'd never mentioned wanting. But no flowers. That's when June realized she wasn't being forgotten. She was being ignored. Because forgetting implies that the information was received and then lost. But this was different. This was him hearing her and deciding, consciously or not, that what she said didn't matter enough to remember. Your brain categorizes every piece of information into 2 boxes, important or unimportant. When someone loves you, what you say goes in the important box. When someone is just going through the motions, your words get filed under background noise. June's words had been background noise for years. She started noticing the pattern everywhere. He forgot important dates, not because he was bad with dates, but because she wasn't important enough to put in his calendar. He was on his phone when she talked about something that mattered to her. He changed the subject when she was mid-sentence. He said, I don't remember you telling me that, when she absolutely had. And then there were the people who did remember. Her best friend asked follow-up questions about things June had mentioned weeks earlier. Her co-worker noticed when June got a haircut. Her sister texted her on the anniversary of their grandmother's death without June having to remind her. Attentiveness is not a personality trait. It's a choice. and her boyfriend was choosing not to pay attention. June wrote out what she wanted to say, not dramatic, just clear. I've noticed I've mentioned the flowers a few times, and it doesn't seem to be sticking. Remembering what I care about is important to me in a relationship. Can we talk about that? He got defensive, said she was being too demanding, that he had more important things to think about than flowers, and that was all the information she needed. June ended the relationship 2 weeks later. Not with anger, but with clarity. Chapter 4. The healing. June didn't immediately meet the man of her dreams. This isn't that kind of story, but something deeper changed. She stopped making herself small. She stopped apologizing for wanting to be known. She spent the next few months healing. She took prayer walks, moving her body and talking to God out loud. She told him about the flowers, the pottery class, the way she'd learned to make herself forgettable, and she asked him to show her how he remembers her. Walking and praying did something sitting and journaling couldn't. It got her out of her head and into her body. It reminded her that she wasn't just a mind processing pain. She was a whole person, seen and known by God. She practiced with safe people. She told her best friend 3 things that mattered to her. And then, a week later, her friend brought them up. How did that thing go? Did you ever try that recipe? Small things, but they rebuilt June's belief that she was, in fact, memorable. She meditated on Psalm 139. Not just read it, sat with it. Let it sink into the places where she'd believed she was forgettable. Let God remind her that he knows her, fully, completely, without her having to perform or remind or beg. And slowly, the lie started to lose its power. I'm not memorable became I am worth remembering. I'm asking for too much became I'm asking for what love is supposed to look like. I need to be low maintenance became I need to be known. 6 months after the breakup, June met someone new. Chapter 5. The difference. His name was Caleb. They met at a coffee shop. He was reading a book she loved, and they started talking. On their second date, she mentioned loving old bookstores, the kind with creaky floors and the smell of paper and dust. She said it once, casually, the way you mention anything when you're getting to know someone. 3 weeks later, he texted her, "Found an old bookstore I think you'd love. Want to check it out this weekend?" June stared at her phone. 3 weeks. Not 6 months, not a year. 3 weeks, he'd remembered. Not because she'd reminded him, not because it was written down somewhere, because when she'd said it, he'd actually been listening. And for the first time in years, June felt what it was like to be remembered. Over the next few months, she watched Caleb pay attention. He texted her after their first date to make sure she got home safe. He asked follow-up questions about things she'd shared weeks earlier. He noticed when she was overwhelmed at a crowded restaurant and suggested they grab their food to go and eat somewhere quieter. He brought her coffee one morning, and it was exactly how she liked it. She hadn't told him. He'd just paid attention the last time they'd gotten coffee together. He celebrated her wins like they were his own. When she got a promotion at work, he showed up at her apartment with flowers, not roses, grocery store daisies and baby's breath. "You mentioned you loved these," he said. Figured it was a good day for them. June stood there, holding the bouquet, and something inside her healed. Not all at once, but enough. This is what it feels like to be known. Not because you're performing, not because you're reminding, but because someone is actually paying attention. Chapter 6. The transformation. Here's what June discovered. There are 2 kinds of love. The first kind says, "I love you," but forgets what you love. It's convenient. It's comfortable. It requires nothing of the person giving it. The second kind remembers. It pays attention. It notices when you're cold and brings you a sweater. It asks about the presentation you mentioned being nervous about. It signs you up for the pottery class you mentioned 6 months ago. The first kind makes you feel like you're asking for too much. The second kind makes you feel like you're finally enough. June had spent years accepting the first kind and calling it love. But now she knew the difference. And she couldn't unsee it. The man who will remember you is being prepared right now. He's learning to pay attention. He's developing the emotional intelligence to notice when someone's energy shifts. He's healing from his own wounds so he can show up for yours. And when you meet him, you won't have to beg for his attention. You won't have to remind him what matters to you. He will listen the first time. He will remember weeks later, months later. He will notice when you're overwhelmed and bring you tea at midnight and sign you up for that pottery class. This is not a fairy tale. This is what godly, attentive love looks like. June's friends started asking questions. Wait, he actually remembered that. He brought you flowers just because. That's not normal. June's response was perfect. Good. Because when your standards make others uncomfortable, you're finally operating at the right level. Your existence proves that everything they say is impossible is actually just what love is supposed to look like. That's why they'll call you picky. That's why they'll say you're asking for too much. They need you to lower your standards so they can feel better about settling, but you're not doing it for them. You're doing it because you've discovered the secret. Being remembered isn't about finding the perfect man. It's about becoming someone who knows the difference between words and action. Between I love you and I remember you. When you understand the Pottery Class Principle, public declaration, recognizing the pattern, knowing God's standard, healing the wound, and recognizing real attentiveness, you're not just raising your standards. You're reshaping your identity. You stop being someone who hopes to be remembered and become someone who knows she's unforgettable. And when that happens, when that transformation is complete, people will look at your relationship and think, how did she find that? And the answer will be simple. She didn't find it. She became someone who wouldn't settle for anything less. The question remains, are you ready for this level of transformation? Because it's not about being more demanding. It's about death and rebirth. The death of the girl who made herself small. The birth of the woman who knows her worth. The Pottery Class Principle won't make you easier to love. It'll make you someone who knows what love actually looks like. Someone others will look at and think, she's too picky. And when you hear those words, you'll know you've finally gotten where you need to be. In the comments, write this: I am worth remembering, not as a wish. As a declaration, if this video changed how you see love, save it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And remember, the standard that makes others uncomfortable is the only standard worth having. You're not forgotten. You're seen. You're known. You're an Esther.